My name is Elena Ward. I'm 33 years old, and last Saturday night I sat at a white linen table at Lumiere Austin's most exclusive French fusion restaurant wedged between the ice bucket and a potted ficus tree, pretending I didn't hear my mother say, "Just put Elena at the end." She doesn't mind. It was my younger sister's engagement dinner. Grace, 25, radiant, newly engaged to a rising star in venture capital, was glowing in soft pink chiffon and perfect lip gloss. The kind of woman my mother always dreamed of raising. The kind she thought she had in both of us. Until I dropped out of Stanford Law and ruined everything. I wasn't supposed to be there, not really. I hadn't even known the dinner was happening until Aunt Lizette texted me the location asking what I was wearing. I bought a dress last minute, arrived on time, brought a handmade gift. Still no one had counted on me showing up. Not even Grace, especially not Grace. She blinked when she saw me. "Oh, hey," she said, mid-hug with a cousin. "Didn't know you were in town." "I live here," I said gently. "Since 2019, right." The room was already buzzing when I arrived, white noise from wine glasses clinking and filtered playlists humming. My mother was rearranging the place cards like she was playing chess, and I was the pawn she kept forgetting existed. She looked up, expression taut. "Elena, I thought you had a work trip. I moved it." "Oh," she said. "Well, there's an open seat by the back. Don't worry, it's near the bar." It was also near the swinging kitchen door. I sat anyway, smiled politely, took shallow sips of Merlot, and responded to distant relatives with vague answers about consulting and education tech, which technically were not lies at all. What no one knew, what I hadn't told them, was that I didn't just work in edtech. I had built the fastest growing literacy platform for bilingual students in the US. From scratch, from my couch, from late nights and cold takeout and credit card max outs that took years to dig out of. The platform was called BrightStep, and in 2 weeks, BrightStep was closing Series C funding at a $220 million valuation. But to my family, I was still Elena the Flake, Elena the dropout, Elena who used to be smart before she ran off to do startup stuff. My mother still told people I worked in digital tutoring as if I was handing out flashcards on Zoom. So I sat there smiling, nodding, fielding sideways glances like a pro. Until someone sat across from me. A man, tall, polite, navy suit. One of those smiles that looked like it had stock options behind it. I recognized him immediately from photos Grace's fiancé. His name was Theo Harper, Stanford MBA, Horizon Capital, known in tech circles for early bets on underdog apps that went unicorn. He offered his hand. "Hi, I'm Theo. Elena." His grip was firm but brief. Then something flickered across his face. Faint recognition, a mental connection trying to form. I said nothing. I've learned not to rush that moment. Dinner started. Toasts were made. Grace giggled through stories of how they met over a kombucha tasting. My dad cleared his throat about raising daughters with different definitions of success. Everyone laughed. I did not. Then dessert came. Chocolate tarts. Creme brulee. And as someone clinked their fork too hard on a plate, Theo looked up at me, really looked. He leaned in. "Wait," he whispered, "are you?" Then his eyes widened. "You're the founder of BrightStep." The clinking stopped. The laughter stopped. Even Grace stopped smiling. And my mother, Diana Ward, queen of courtroom composure, actually dropped her spoon. For the first time all evening, I didn't feel invisible. I felt inevitable. The air inside Lumiere shifted like someone had cracked a window during a blizzard. Theo was still staring at me, eyes darting as if scanning headlines in his head. Founder, BrightStep, Series C, EdTech unicorn. Grace's hand froze mid-motion near her wine glass. "Theo," she said, her voice sugary and sharp. He blinked. "Sorry, He turned to me, quieter now. "You're Elena Ward. The BrightStep, Elena Ward." I nodded once. The room, suddenly too quiet, tried to pretend it wasn't eavesdropping. It failed. Badly. "Wow," he said. "That platform's on our radar." Horizon tried to get an intro last quarter, but your team was quiet. "Stealth mode, sort of," I said. "We were raising." My mother coughed lightly as if to clear the air or reclaim control. What's bright step? She asked each syllable like she was tasting something foreign. Theo turned toward her, all charm. It's an adaptive literacy platform. Bilingual learning. Their pilot program doubled engagement in Title I schools. It's kind of a big deal. Silence again. Then Dad let out a small skeptical laugh. Really, Arlena? And just like that, I was 14 again. Winning regionals for debate while my parents left mid-ceremony because Jason had a tennis match. Only now it wasn't a certificate and a ribbon, it was a business helping tens of thousands of students learn to read in 2 languages. Theo leaned back slightly. Actually, Bright Step's rumored to be closing around north of 200 mil. Elena, if I'd known, I would have asked you to present at our education fund mixer last fall. I smiled. I got the invite. I just didn't feel like performing. Grace stood up, abrupt. Excuse me, she muttered and disappeared toward the restroom. Aunt Lizette raised an eyebrow. She okay? She's fine, my mother said, tight-lipped. Maybe a little tired. Dad, trying to salvage the narrative, chuckled. Well, no wonder you've been so busy, Elena. You could have told us, though. I took a breath, measured, controlled. I tried, I said. Twice. Once over Thanksgiving. Once when you asked if I wanted to go back to school and finish what I started. You said EdTech was a trend. And you told me I was wasting my GRE scores. My mom shifted in her seat. We were worried, Elena. You dropped out. You moved into that tiny apartment. You never asked for help. I didn't need help, I said. I needed room. Another beat. Then, well, Dad said, raising his glass, we're proud of you now. Now. Not when I maxed out 3 credit cards. Not when I coded 12 hours a day from a friend's couch. Not when I pitched to investors who looked at my resume and saw a dropout instead of a founder. Just now. Theo broke the awkward pause. Elena, would you be willing to talk shop sometime? Off the record, I've got a couple founders in our portfolio building an adjacent space. Nothing nearly as scaled, though? I nodded. Sure, happy to connect. Mom looked like she was trying to decide whether to be impressed or threatened. Dad just refilled his glass. The table buzzed again, conversation tiptoeing back into motion. I stood. Elena, Mom asked. Where are you going, bathroom, I said. Also probably home. I didn't say it with malice. No flair, just truth. Because the second Theo said, you're the founder, I realized something I no longer needed them to believe in me. Because someone already had. Me. The hallway to the restrooms at Lumiere was narrow, dimly lit with gold sconces and expensive silence. I didn't actually need the bathroom. I just needed space. Somewhere without polished silver, strained smiles, or the sound of my mother overpronouncing startup like it was a sneeze. As I rounded the corner, I nearly bumped into Grace. She was leaning against the wall across from the mirror, arms folded, breathing slow and shallow like someone mid-panic attack, but too proud to admit it. We locked eyes. Oh, I said. She didn't move, just stared. What is it? She finally asked. Her voice was calm, too calm, like porcelain just before it cracks. I raised an eyebrow. What's what you being all that? She gestured vaguely toward the dining room. The founder. The company. Everyone whispering now like you're someone. I didn't answer immediately, because there it was, not curiosity, not awe. Disruption. To her carefully curated family hierarchy. To the image she'd been rehearsing for years, that I was the sister you pitied with quiet grace, not the sister whose name ended up in pitch decks. You're upset, I said finally. I'm confused, she replied. Because I didn't tell you or because you didn't figure it out first, that hit. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. You're the golden child, I said softly. You always have been. You still are. This isn't a competition, isn't it? She snapped. You've been sitting on this empire like it's nothing, and now tonight of all nights you drop it like a twist in a movie. I exhaled. I didn't drop anything. Theo asked a question. I answered. If anyone made this a moment, it wasn't me. She looked away, blinking fast. I watched her reflection in the mirror. She was still beautiful, still polished, still perfectly arranged, but something had slipped. That tiny crack behind her eyeline. The kind that always comes before the shatter. I just don't get it, she whispered. You flailed for years. You dropped out. You bounced between cities. You dated that guy who tried to sell essential oils as an investment strategy. I chuckled. Valid point. You weren't supposed to end up here. And by here you mean, and she bit her lip. Powerful, admired, in control. I let that sit for a moment. Then, Grace, I didn't get here instead of failing. I got here through it. That's what you missed. You all thought silence meant surrender, but it was just me building where no one was watching. Her eyes watered, whether from anger, shame, or something else, I couldn't tell. But this night, this was mine, she said quietly. And there it was, the truth behind the hurt. I didn't come to take your spotlight, I said. I came to sit quietly, give you a gift, and leave. But the world doesn't run on stage directions. Sometimes the truth sneaks in anyway. A long silence. Then Grace stepped forward. Please don't say anything else tonight, to the table, to anyone. Just let me have this. I studied her for a beat. I never came here to take it. I turned to leave, pausing at the corner. And for what it's worth, you don't have to be the star to matter. Then I left her in that hallway alone, with her perfect posture and imperfect expectations. Because sometimes the glass doesn't shatter with sound. It shatters in silence. When I returned to the table, it was like walking into a theater mid-scene. Conversations had shifted, but every line was delivered with a strange stiffness, like everyone was performing the roles they'd rehearsed, only now the script had been tampered with. Theo sat upright, eyes darting between his wine glass and the seat I'd just slid into. Grace wasn't back yet. I reached for my water. My father cleared his throat. So Eleanor, he said, voice strained but steady, we didn't realize your company had reached that level. Translation. You made a mess of our expectations and now we don't know what to do with you. It's still growing, I replied, soft and neutral. But we've done all right. Oh, more than all right. Aunt Meredith cut in her tone, artificially cheerful. I was just reading about heel point in a Forbes piece a few months back, though I had no idea that was you. My goodness, your mother must be proud. She said it like a compliment. My mother's smile twitched. Of course we're proud. Surprised, yes, but proud. I resisted the urge to ask what exactly they were proud of my silence, or the fact that someone else had validated me first. Instead, I said nothing. The steak arrived. Across the table, Theo leaned closer. Just so you know, he whispered, I didn't mean to cause a scene. I turned my head toward him, voice low. You didn't cause anything. You saw someone clearly. That's not a crime. He flushed a little, then gave a small nod. I admire what you've built. I had no idea. No one did, I said. That's how I built it. The room filled again with clinking forks and polite laughter. A kind of forced equilibrium had returned, but underneath I could feel it, the tension of shifting gravity. Old assumptions didn't fit quite right anymore, and people were adjusting uncomfortably. That's when Grace returned. She walked in quietly, no announcement. Just glided to her seat and sat down without looking at me. Her lipstick had been reapplied, her eyes dry, but she avoided Theo's gaze as she picked up her fork and began slicing her salmon in perfect 45-degree angles. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Let her have her moment. Let the room stabilize. Some truths don't need echoes to stay real. Then mid-dessert it happened. Uncle Roger stood. I just want to say, he declared, raising his glass, that tonight we're not just celebrating Grace and Theo, though of course they are the stars. He nodded to them. Grace smiled a little too tightly. We're also celebrating this family, he went on. One full of intelligence, drive, and, well, unexpected brilliance. His gaze flicked to me. There were murmurs, soft clinks of agreement. I braced myself. And then my mother stood, glass in hand. I wasn't planning to speak again, she began. But I feel I must. Here it comes. I've always believed our children should pursue what's best for them, she said, voice measured. Though sometimes we think we know better what that is. She turned her head slightly toward me. And sometimes they teach us, not with rebellion, not with noise, but with results. She raised her glass to Eleanor. The room blinked. Then slowly other glasses followed. Grace hesitated, but even she raised hers. The applause didn't come in claps. It came in crystal, and I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just nodded. Because before the world claps for you, there's a quieter moment when they finally stop pretending you're invisible. And sometimes, that silence is louder than standing ovations. I slipped out of the dining room just after coffee was served. No dramatic exits. No teary speeches. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd done what I came to do, exist fully, unapologetically, in a room that had long insisted I stay small. The hallway outside the private dining room was dim and hushed, a soft corridor, lined with black and white photos of old Chicago. I leaned against the paneled wall, letting the noise behind me fade into murmurs. The air smelled like vanilla bean and old wood. Running away, a voice asked. I turned. Theo. He held 2 small glasses, bourbon neat. He offered one. I figured you earned it, he said. That was something back there. I took the glass, letting the warmth anchor me. You didn't have to defend me, I said. I didn't, he replied. I just told the truth. They're not used to hearing it when it doesn't come in monogrammed packaging. That earned a laugh. He stepped beside me, shoulder just grazing mine. So what happens now, he asked. I shrugged. Honestly. Probably 100 messages from relatives asking if they can invest. My mother will pretend she knew all along. Grace will either cry in the bathroom or write me out of her wedding planning app. Wedding planning app. Oh yeah, I said dryly. She built a whole timeline in Notion, color-coded, with mood boards. Of course she did. A beat of silence passed. Then he asked, Why didn't you tell them sooner? It was the question, the one that hummed beneath every glass raised tonight. I didn't want to hear them call it luck, I said, or timing, or temporary. Theo nodded slowly. So you waited until they couldn't. I looked down at the bourbon in my glass, then back up. I waited until the numbers were louder than their doubt. He leaned against the wall beside me. That sounds exhausting. It was. Another pause. Then almost gently he said, You know, they're not the ones keeping score anymore. I blinked. He pulled something from his coat pocket, a small folded piece of paper. I frowned. What's that? My ledger, he said with a half smile. Figured I'd balance it tonight. He handed it to me. Inside a simple chart. A list of names, family members with 2 columns next to each. One marked, assumed, the other actual. Under mine, assumed trying to find herself. Low confidence. Maybe needs help. Actual founder, CEO, leader, knows exactly who she is. I looked up stunned. You've been keeping a list. He shrugged. I'm a data analyst. When in doubt, I quantify. I laughed, but my throat caught halfway through. And you, I asked, handing it back. Where do you fall? He didn't hesitate. Assumed another Mitchell fiancé, trying not to rock the boat. Actual. The one who saw you first. That did it. I looked away, blinking fast. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. It's just been a long 5 years. He nodded. You carried it alone. I had to. You don't anymore. We stood there for a long minute. The clink of silverware echoed faintly through the wall. Then he added, You know, Grace isn't going to forget this. I know, I said. She might not forgive it either. That's okay. He tilted his head. You don't want her back. I want her honest, I said. And she doesn't know how to be that yet. Theo nodded, finishing his drink. I should get back, he said. Damage control. I smiled. Good luck. He turned to go, then paused. Hey, he said over his shoulder. Whatever happens next, don't disappear again. Some of us are just now catching up to who you really are. I didn't reply. I just watched him go. And somewhere deep in the place that used to ache to be understood, something let go. Because for the first time in years, the score wasn't about who clapped the loudest. It was about who saw me when no one else looked. And that ledger, it was finally balanced. The next morning, the silence in my parents' house wasn't awkward. It was strategic. The kind of silence that tiptoes around broken heirlooms and bruised egos. That waits for someone else to go first. I sat in the kitchen, coffee in hand, staring at a plate of untouched croissants. Across from me, my mother stirred her tea without sipping it. She hadn't said a word since I walked in. Dad's voice finally broke the spell. "We didn't know," he said, not looking at me, "that you had built all that." I set the mug down carefully. "You didn't ask. We thought you were just figuring things out." Mom added, voice brittle. "No," I said gently. "You thought I had failed, and that made you comfortable, because it meant you didn't have to examine why I left." A pause. "You know that's not fair," Mom whispered. "Isn't it?" I replied. "You all filled in the blanks with your own version of me, and when I didn't correct you, you didn't question it." Dad stood, then sat again. "We only ever wanted you to succeed. You wanted me to succeed your way." The words hung there, raw, undeniable. Then Mom looked up. Her eyes weren't angry, just tired. "You could have told us." "I did," I said, "just not in ways you were willing to hear." The back door creaked. Grace walked in, hair still in curlers, sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky. "Oh," she said flatly. "Still here?" Mom shot her a look. "Grace." "No, it's fine," I said. "Let her speak." Grace didn't need the invitation. "You know it was my dinner, and somehow you made it all about you." "Again?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that how you saw it?" She crossed her arms. "You could have stayed quiet." "I did, for 7 years." Grace flushed. "You humiliated me, in front of Theo." "In front of everyone." I didn't say a word. "Theo did." "But you let him," she snapped. "You let him stand there and make me look small." I stood now, calm, even. "I didn't make you look small, Grace. I just stopped making myself smaller so you could feel big." Grace blinked. "That's the difference," I said. "And I won't apologize for it." She stormed out. A long breath passed through the room, like weather shifting. My mother spoke first. "You didn't come to make a scene, but you did leave a mark." "I didn't want to burn bridges," I said, grabbing my coat. "But I'm also not walking across ones that only exist in your imagination." Dad nodded slowly. "You're really not the same girl who left for college, are you?" "No," I said, opening the door. "She's the one who would have begged to be understood." And with that, I stepped outside into air that felt cleaner, colder, real. Theo was waiting near the curb holding 2 coffees. "Still want breakfast?" he asked, offering one. I smiled. "Let's go somewhere with real questions, not curated narratives." He laughed. "That's oddly specific. So is growth." And as we walked toward the car, I realized something I hadn't just changed their story last night. I'd started telling mine with no permission, no filter, and no apology. 2 weeks passed. No apology calls, no dramatic emails, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when people are reevaluating everything they thought they knew about you, about themselves, about how far back they'll need to rewind the narrative to make sense again. Then came the envelope. No return address, just my name scrawled in my mother's delicate script. Inside a single sheet of thick stationery and a handwritten note. "Sunday, 10 a.m., Terrace Cafe, just us. Mom, no please. No I miss you, no emotional currency, just a request. Clean. Controlled. Exactly how she taught me to write a cease and desist when I was 10. I almost didn't go. But then I remembered what my therapist once said. Closure isn't about getting answers. It's about choosing which questions are worth asking again. So I went. The cafe was half full sunshine threading through glass windows, cutting soft shadows across linen napkins. She sat near the back blazer, sharp espresso untouched. When she saw me, she stood. Not a hug, but she stood. "Progress. Thanks for coming," she said. I nodded and sat. She hesitated. "I wanted to talk without performance." "That's a start." She folded her hands. "I've been reading." "About me?" I asked, lifting one brow. She smiled faintly. "About tech, startups, disruption, venture capital, terms I used to dismiss like trendy nonsense. And now, she said slowly, I see them in the world you built, not the world I expected. A beat. I was scared, Mia. That name. She hadn't used it softly in years. Scared of what? That I raised a daughter I didn't understand. That if I admitted you were right, I'd also have to admit I never tried to learn who you were becoming. I sipped my coffee. And I'm still scared, she said, but I don't want that fear to keep me on the sidelines anymore. That landed harder than I expected, not because it was poetic, but because it was true. And Dad, I asked. He's recalibrating, she said. And he probably won't say it, but he's proud. I caught him Googling your company last night. I laughed. He'll call it research. He called it due diligence. She rolled her eyes. Old habits. We sat in a brief, easy silence. Then she asked the question that I'd waited my whole life to hear. Can you tell me what it feels like? I blinked. What feels like to walk into a room and have your name mean something. Not because of us, but because of you. I stared out the window. It feels like owning the room I used to be afraid to enter. She nodded, absorbing that. I want to know more, she said. I'll share what I can, and Grace, I paused. She's not there yet. She was hurt. She was entitled, I corrected. But that doesn't mean she's beyond repair. It just means she needs to learn the same thing I did. What's that? I smiled softly. That worth isn't given by family. It's claimed, then protected. My mother looked at me like she was seeing a grown woman for the first time. Do you hate us? She asked suddenly. I blinked. No, even after all the no. I cut in, because if I did, I wouldn't have shown up. I just stopped performing. Another pause. Then she leaned forward. I hope it's not too late to learn who you really are. I stood. It's never too late, I said. But this time you'll have to do the work. And I left. Not angrily, not dramatically. Just done with the weight of needing anything more. Epilogue. 3 months later, an email arrived. Subject: Grace feedback request. Attached a pitch deck. She'd started drafting a mental wellness app for high school girls, navigating pressure from achievement-obsessed families. At the end of the deck, one line stood out. Inspired by someone who showed me that worth isn't something you inherit. It's something you build. And I didn't say I told you so. I sent back notes. Then closed the laptop and smiled. Because finally, the room wasn't the only thing that had changed. The story had too.